Welcome back to Dead by Daylight. Or rather, I kind of wanted to just talk about it a little bit because right now Dead by Daylight is, it's not in the best place it's ever been. I'll tell you that straight up. The meta on both sides is just extremely boring. The balance is. It's better than it has ever been, but it's still out of whack. And I don't know, man. The community seems to be getting somehow more vile. I'll get into that though. So, yeah, let's start with the meta. So, yeah, let's start with the killer side of things because I mean I haven't played that much Dead by Daylight as of late, but I'm familiar enough with the current killer meta. And yeah, killers love slowdown. They always have, and chances are they always will. Even if they don't necessarily want to. I mean, I would not mind playing more gimmicky builds personally, but it feels like I'm throwing if I'm not running at least 1 or 2 slowdowns. And I think that's why you see a lot of people bringing even 3 or 4 slowdowns. Because it's just even if it's not fun, it's good to have them in your back pocket, especially with the onslaught of Survivor Gen speed perks that Behavior has been putting out. Anyways, I just thought I see. I actually have some suggestions for some of the killer meta perks. So it's not much, but it's something, huh? Call of Brine. This perk is it's good. It's a really good perk. It's a nice perk. It was not that bad until the current meta, but as it stands, I think it could lose the information. Remove anything aura related or notification related from the generator. If you still want the information, you can pair it with surveillance. That way you're running an information perk, and you know it's 2 perks for the same value, which makes sense. Call of Brine right now is a little overloaded. Overcharge. It's honestly trash without Call of Brine to make up for its shortcomings, so I don't think it really needs any changes. Pain Resonance is in a good place, as are Deadlock, No Way Out, you know, those perks. Now let's go and get into probably the 2 most controversial slowdowns. Pop Goes the Weasel, which is right now bordering on useless. And, well, as is Ruin. Except Ruin actually goes all the way to being useless. And, Eruption. Eruption is insanely strong right now, especially against solo queue. And it just prevents people from playing the game straight up. So, yeah, my suggestion for Eruption is simple. Replace that 25-second incapacitation effect with a 15-second generator block. This way, you know, Survive with Friends won't necessarily have an advantage against Eruption because it'll affect all teams equally. But at the same time, it's now 10 seconds shorter, and you can heal or do a totem in that time. I think that would keep it very strong, but make it a much healthier perk overall. As for Pop, honestly, just if you're gonna buff that back, like let's say they completely nerf Eruption into the ground, like what they did to Thanatophobia, I'd say Pop should be brought back to being a total percentage rather than a current percentage. 20% of the gen's total progress is still worth using it for, but 20% of current progress makes it almost... It's not even worth considering. And Ruin... Ruin is just not worth the slot either way right now. Honestly, you could probably revert both of those for the most part. The only reason they got changed was so that they could say they shook up the meta. That's the only reason. They were probably among the healthiest game delay perks that we had seen in Dead by Daylight, so yeah, it was all let's do it so we can say we did it, with no forethought to the actual consequences. As for other kinds of perks, most chase perks are mediocre. I mean, your best chase perks are like, what? Brutal strength to counter pre-drops and bamboozle for dumb window setups. Those really aren't the best perks in the game, usually. Bamboozle's pretty nice, I'll give it that, but yeah. Anyways, I'm getting off my script here. So yeah, and then aura perks, they are kind of very disincentivized by the distortion buff, the prevalence of off the record, and the existence of objective obsession. Like, I get that aura perks can be strong, but right now it feels really bad running them and just not really having any value, or having it negative value, having the perk work in favor of the survivor. So, you know, and then you got your other gimmicky perks like stealth perks. Those are funny, but yeah. As for the survivor meta, it definitely has its issues with, turbo healing, endurance, and yeah, again, the recent onslaught of gen perks like hyper focus is probably it is a problem. Not probably is a problem. It is a problem. Quick Gambit just feels like a giant middle finger to people on indoor maps, and I mean, Potential Energy is the best 3-gen buster in the game. At this point, I'm genuinely convinced that the only reason they added the 10 seconds generators is because they ran out of ideas for survivor perks, so they had to do something so they wouldn't get completely torn to shreds for adding generator speed perks. And then, yeah, let's talk about the, second, quote-unquote, second chance free hit part of it. Off the record is fine, mostly. It's a good anti-tunneling perk. The issue I see with it is people want Decisive Strike to be rebuffed, which you can get some really disgusting combos already, like off the record into Decisive Strike into Dead Hard. That is 3 hits already, and if you manage to actually get healed, that's 4 hits for a single hook. Like, yeah, I get it. If the killer is eating all that, they are tunneling, but sometimes you need to tunnel to do anything in this game. If you have a bad first chase, you better be ready to camp, tunnel, and defend those 3 gens, because otherwise you're getting 4-outed and teabagged all the way to the exit gate. So, yeah, not... I'm very iffy about buffing Decisive Strike while off the record is in its current state. And yeah, Dead Hard... honestly, Dead Hard probably just needs a full rework. Because, yeah, it's healthier. It is a healthier perk for the game than it was pre 6.1. But that's like saying a deep-fried hamburger is healthier than a dozen deep-fried Oreos. It's still not exactly healthy. So, yeah. And then, yeah, healing speed between medkits and Circle of Healing. Just not... It makes it really punishing if you have to drop a chase, because survivors will heal almost instantly and be back on gens. The only slowdown to that, it really is if they don't already have the boon. Which, considering boons can easily be set in an area that the killer doesn't want to go, and can be reset an infinite number of times, just Circle of Healing leaves a really bad taste. It's not as strong as it used to be, but it's still a little too good for having no counterplay beyond just camp and tunnel the person who set it up. I also want to point out that Fogwise is kind of ridiculous, and Windows of Opportunity really makes the hold W playstyle even easier. So, not saying they necessarily, well, Fogwise might need looking at. Windows, not necessarily busted, but it does help with the most boring but efficient playstyle for survivors. I'll admit, I don't play enough with these perks to really come up with a really good idea for fixes. And it's not like I play Survivor enough to where I could anyway. Like, I dabble in Survivor. I just don't find solo queue very fun. Not necessarily because, oh, solo queue, but just because, I don't know, it's just kind of boring to me. Without somebody to chat with and whatnot. Which is why you probably won't see me playing much Survivor outside of B-roll footage. I just don't find it entertaining enough for myself. Like, And of course, maps, as always, are total garbage. I did have one idea for Survivor, though. Bit of a compromise here. What if, in exchange for Decisive Strike getting buffed to 4 seconds, which is halfway between what it is now and the classic 5-second DS, just what if Endurance, just in general, gave half the speed boost? This way, eating a dead heart isn't quite as punishing. Body blocking with off the record becomes a bit more threatening because you could go down very quickly afterwards if you're not very careful. But at the same time, the killer still gets that slowdown from wiping their weapon, and you still get a bit of a speed boost. I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas. And yeah, if the final part I want to talk about here in terms of the gameplay itself is the killers. I don't want to get too much into killer design discourse because, well, that's something for a whole different video that would take a lot more time and effort. But I do genuinely think that one of the biggest issues with balancing Dead by Daylight, arguably at least as big of an issue as the maps themselves, is the gap between killers. Yes, there will always be stronger killers and weaker killers, but like, even if we don't necessarily go, for the whole, best versus absolute best versus the absolute worst, I still think that the gap between, say, Wesker and Pig is still too much of an ocean. Like, the game should not be this unbalanced between individual killers. Again, I get it, they need to be different, but surely they can be brought up a little bit. Like, the top tiers, Blight, Nurse, they need to be brought down a bit. And the bottom tier killers, they need to be brought up a kind of decent amount here. Like, they don't necessarily have to be good, but they can at least aim for decent. If we take Demogorgon, a widely loved killer, and say that, that's about... Right now he's considered about average. Okay, let's go a little below Demogorgon and make that the baseline. And then let's say Huntress is about where it caps out. Maybe a little higher, like closer to where, a really good spirit is, and that's where Nurse would be, let's say. I think that would be a way healthier gap to work with. And it'd still offer a huge gap between the strongest and the weakest, but it wouldn't be like, an entire solar system of killer strengths, which I think is just one of the issues. Anyways, and as for the community outside of the game, lovely lads, lovely lasses, just a wonderful bunch, honestly. Like, yeah, everybody complains about the game, but it's sort of in a unifying way, It's like, yeah, we may have our us versus them debates, but we all dislike the game because we love it, or, well, I mean, if the DBD community didn't love DBD, they wouldn't be the DBD community now, would they? Like, as much as most DBD players love to hate DBD, most of us do it out of the love in our hearts. But in-game, oh my lord, years of us versus them tribalism has degraded into both sides trying to make each other as miserable as possible half the time, I swear. You know, you'll have the people that slug for the bleed out at 4 gens, or 5 gens, you know? You'll have the survivors who will do everything in their power to just wait and BM the killer for the entire 2 minutes of endgame collapse after, you know, and doing everything they can to extend it before they have to open the gate. You know, it would not surprise me in the slightest to hear about survivors that just wait at the gates so that they can BM before being forced to open them. I haven't heard about it yet. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's something that can be fixed. I think that's just something that both sides are going to have to learn to live with, myself included. Like, it always annoys me when people BM that hard, but I guess it's just part of the game at this point, and no use fighting it. Not saying you should participate in it. Absolutely not. But there will always be jerks on the internet. Anyways, I'm sorry. I didn't have a good video for today. Between the Golden Souls just not working because the save file and Dead by Daylight just I just gave you a bunch of reasons why I haven't played Dead by Daylight in over a month. So you know, I might play a few matches for the upcoming Lunar event this week, but for the most part, yeah, no. And I have some ideas for what to play next month. I even have some ideas for a little bit more this month and into the next couple months, but I don't know. It's been a weird year so far. Until next time, this has been Proselyte Primus, and I hope you enjoyed my garbage ramble / suggestions hybrid.